WOSU's Curious Sea Bus answers your questions about our region, its history, and its people. Glenn Cook wrote in to ask, how did Mooberry Street get its name? We asked Aaron O'Donovan of the Columbus Metropolitan Library to tell the story.
Mooberry Street. People often ask about this street a lot because it's just such a funny name to read and say. But Mooberry is actually a real person. Mooberry was named after William Mooberry, who was a Revolutionary War soldier who came to Ohio after he was basically kicked out of a Quaker church in York County, Pennsylvania. He supposedly fought alongside George Washington during Valley Forge. That's sort of the claim to fame for that family. The story I read in an old Dispatch article was that he actually, because he wouldn't repent for fighting in the American Revolutionary War, that he was excommunicated from his Quaker church, and he literally had to sneak out of the church window as sort of a way they shamed him. His family moved from Pennsylvania to Ohio around 1806, and it only took him a couple years to buy land. He bought land in 1808. According to our reporter's records that we have in Franklin County, and he purchased 319 acres in Section 36 of Franklin County. The Mooberry family farm was along Elm Creek, and Mooberry Street was the street that led to the farm, and that's how it's got its name. All but one son moved out of Columbus, and they moved to Peoria, Illinois. Alexander Mooberry is the only son that stayed in Columbus. He was a prominent citizen in Columbus, and he inherited his father's property, and he lived here in Columbus till 1884. William Mooberry and his wife Elizabeth were buried in a small graveyard near Williams Road out in Madison Township, because later on, William Mooberry and his wife got land further east, and that's where they ultimately were buried, or in their second parcel of land. That land ended up becoming owned by the Page family, so it's called the Page Family Farm. And when things were starting to be more built up out in East Columbus, the area was developed into a subdivision, and they had to reintern Mr. Mooberry and his wife. And ultimately, they were moved to a common grave in Obet Cemetery. And the old gravestones from the Page Family Farm Cemetery were discarded. And now William Mooberry and his wife are in a common grave in Obet Cemetery. And there's actually a marker in Obet Cemetery. You can view it, and it does mention that William Mooberry is buried there. But interestingly enough, his wife is not listed in that common grave, but all records seem to indicate that she probably was buried in that common grave as well.
Do you have a question for Curious Sea Bus? Head to wosu.org/curious to submit your idea. Your question could become the next Curious Sea Bus story.